Peace and blessings, family. Thanks for joining me for another live session. Welcome to our new and returning listeners. If you're joining us for the first time, be sure to put that in the chat so that the moderators can welcome you. You all, here we go again. I'm telling you, we have to keep our young people lifted up. Oh my goodness. Every time you turn around, there's something. There is something. We definitely have to keep these children covered. Um, some of them throw caution to the wind, and we really, really need to sit them down and have the talk. Oh, it's just, man, it's just so hard. I can only imagine what that family is dealing with right now. We definitely need to keep them lifted up because the forces of evil are just on the rise, and I think we know that. We can see how the tables are turning. We can see the changes, that are happening right now. Some is to cause fear, but we know that the Most High has not given us the spirit of fear. So we have to trust Him in all that we do and say we also have to use wisdom. We have to use wisdom. So definitely, as I said, keep these young people prayed up because a lot is happening right now. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the lesson and pick up where we left off. I ended the last session by saying that you can't identify the descendants of Esau by focusing on one distinct language or ethnicity. But Esau's influence is certainly evident historically, as he aligned himself with various ideologies, I should say, that supported his agenda. Through belief and bloodline, he infiltrated religious and political realms, fostering relentless hostility towards the children of Jacob. And you all, that's the key right there. His hatred of Yah's people. So this brings us back to the question of who really runs the world. We need to really focus on Esau's identity um, as it pertains to his mingling and blending in with these other groups. You can't just say Esau is the white man. We know that his descendants are on the continent. We've covered some of them. So we need to uncover the identity of those who hate us, and we can identify them by their fruit. We're going to look at the many faces of Esau, Edom. The world believes that the nation of Edom completely disappeared from history and they are no more. But does that align with history and the prophecies? They say the same thing about Rome. They say Rome is no more. But then how does that align with Daniel's vision? We know that Rome is the legs of iron. So they have to be here. They have to be here, and we need to be able to identify them. Yes, the historical records show that the Edomite kingdom fell in the 6th century. Babylon basically devastated the region, and Edom lost its territory and political structure. But was that the end of Esau? No. No, but the world believes that Esau is no longer on the scene. They may no longer be a kingdom, but they morphed into something else, just like Rome. Edomites became the Idumeans. So when we look at Malachi 1, 1 through 4, and I'm going to read this from the Septuagint. We know that he did rebuild. It says, the burden of the word of the Most High to Israel by the hand of his messenger. Lay it, I pray you, to heart. I have loved you, says the Most High, and you have said, wherein have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Says the Most High, yet I loved Jacob and hated Esau and laid waste his border. So we know that this happened. Laid waste his borders and made his heritage as dwellings of the wilderness. Because one will say, Idumea has been overthrown, but let us return and rebuild the desolate places. Thus says the Most High Yah. Now I want you to pay attention to here. It is identifying them in this latter state as Idumea. So there was a name change. It says, they shall rebuild. This is what the Most High is saying. They shall rebuild, or they shall build. But I will throw down, and they shall be called the borders of wickedness, and the people against whom the Most High has set himself forever. They did rebuild. So how can we say that they are no more? Just think about that for a second. We know that Edom's land would be known for its moral corruption, hostility towards the Most High's people, and refusal to repent. And the Most High is saying, yes, they're going to build. In the last session, we talked about how he would do it. But in this session, we need to dig deeper to see where he went and how he morphed into something else. So we know that he used infiltration to usurp the authority and rights of other nations. The Israelites were not immune. The Edomites also infiltrated Judea. Let's look at this from 2 Kings 16, 1 through 6. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the sight of the Most High Yah, as his father David had done, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. Indeed, he made his son pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Most High had cast out from before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to make war, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. At that time, Rezin, king of Syria, captured Elath for Syria and drove the men of Judah from Elath. Then the Edomites went to Elath and dwell there to this day. I need you to pay attention to that. Why was Elath so significant? Well, it was associated with trade and military significance, particularly during the reign of King Solomon, who built a fleet of ships there. Elath was considered to be an important location for trade routes. So who moved into that area? The Edomites moved in there. So let's see what the Most High says in Ezekiel 36, 5. Therefore, thus says the Most High Yah, surely I have spoken in my burning jealousy against the rest of the nations and against all Edom. who gave my land to themselves as a possession, with wholehearted joy and spiteful minds, in order to plunder its open country. Notice that the Most High is saying that the land is his and they took possession of it. It wasn't just Edom, though. Other nations did as well. From a historical perspective, this prophecy is targeting all of the nations that took possession of the land of Israel. He is saying they did it out of spite. So keep that in mind. So this brings us back to Edom's strategy to rebuild and expand. If you'll remember from the previous session, phase one was to create alliances and mix with other nations. The method used was to marry them, manage them, and replace them. Phase two was to hijack larger empires from the inside by placing themselves in the top levels and then taking control of the resources. Now we'll look at phase three of the plan, and this part is very important, you all, because this is when they infiltrated and basically took over our land, our name, and culture. So we need to understand that Esau is mixed in with several groups. So we need to be able to identify him. So phase three, Edom transitions to a worldwide system. They became known as the Idumeans. And that's important if you're researching this information. You can't just look for Edom or Esau. You have to look at these different names that were used. What we see is that the Idumeans merged with the Nabateans. They were Arabs. They also merged with Rome. The change from Edom to Idumea was a linguistic variation. We're talking about the same people and land, but the history is recorded in Greek rather than Hebrew. But that's not all. They took on our identity. So during the centuries between the Old and New Testaments, Edom was pushed out of Mount Seir by Arab tribes and migrated into southern Judea, becoming known as Idumea. They executed their most successful assimilation strategy when they did that. The Edomites were conquered by the Nabateans. Later, they migrated into Judea, where they became known as Idumeans in the New Testament era. Now, the Herodian dynasty was the most famous Edomite family in history. They gained absolute power by mixing bloodlines. Herod's father was an Edomite, an Idumean, and his mother was a Nabatean noblewoman. She was Arab. Herod then married Mariam, a Hasmonean princess, and this opened the door for the imperial connection. So Herod used this mixed heritage to position himself as a diplomat to the Roman Empire. He was the go-between. And this is where we need to dig deeper, because once you grasp this, your understanding of what is happening in the New Testament and who the players are will change drastically. Let's look at one example to prove that point before we go on. This comes from John 8. Messiah is speaking to a multitude, but I want to also say that he is speaking to a mixed multitude, and I'll show you why I say that in a few minutes. So he said this to the Yehudis, or Jews, as you see here, that believe on him. If you continue in my word, then you are my disciples indeed, and you will know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Well, certain folks in that crowd had a problem with that statement. They said, "We be Abraham's seed and were never in bondage to any man." No true Israelite or descendant of Jacob would be able to say that. The first thing that would come to mind is captivity in Egypt. And for students of the Old Testament, you know that there were other captivities. So who is saying we are Abraham's seed and were never in bondage to any man? We would have to look at the other sons of Abraham and check off the names. But which ones also converted to a religion and became priests and kings in our land? That simplifies it. In verse 37, Messiah acknowledged that they were Abraham's seed. And what this particular group wanted to do was kill him. He said they were trying to do it because his word had no place in them. It couldn't even take root. Now look at the spirit of Esau. They're trying to take him out because he did something wrong. No, it wasn't because he did anything wrong, but that's the spirit of Esau that passed down. So he is agreeing, yes, you are sons of Abraham, because the sons of Esau definitely would be Abraham's seed, but they would not be Jacob's seed. And as I said, Jacob's seed would not be able to say, we've not been in bondage to any man. There's no way that we can say that. Now let's look at the beginning of the chapter to see who was there. Messiah was at the Mount of Olives, and then he went into the temple. It says, all the people came to him and he began to teach them. Then the scribes and Pharisees brought a woman to him who had been taken in adultery. And this is when we need to ask the question. They represented the religious authority. Why didn't they take care of the situation since they knew what the law said about it? But they said to him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Just pause and think about that part. In the very act, you all. Then they said, Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. Why didn't they do it? So they said to him, but what do you say about this? And in verse 6, it tells us why they didn't do anything about it, but they brought her to him. It says they said this so that they could tempt him and have a reason to accuse him. Were they really interested in upholding the law? No. And this is why I say he was speaking to a mixed multitude. When you read this, you're normally not thinking about the fact that those trying to entrap him and kill him are descendants of Esau. It definitely is not how it was taught to us in Christianity. But what this is telling us is how seamlessly they had become ingrained in the narrative concerning our people, so much so that when you see the words Yehudi, Judean, Jew, Israel, etc., there was no differentiation between the converts and the natural branches. Now, when you hear the words, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel, it takes on a whole new meaning. Let's remember that the tares were planted where? Right next to the wheat. Right next to the wheat. That's where you will find the tares. So let's go back to what I was saying about the name change. During the Old Testament period, the name Edom was used in Hebrew texts and Assyrian records for the ancient kingdom and its people. Back then, folks knew that you were talking about the descendants of Esau. During the Hellenistic and Roman eras that are clearly marked by Japhetic imperial ruling powers, they were called Idumeans when the region came under Greek and Roman influence, especially after the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC and the resettlement of the Edomites in southern Judah. Now, that designation continued during the time of Messiah and the apostles. The Pharisees and Sadducees were the ruling powers, representing the priestly class, and the Herodians were the royal representatives, the kings. So let's make sure that we understand the difference between Idumean and Herodian. The Idumeans refer to the lineage of Esau, a people and ethnic group. They were Edomites. They were forced to convert to the religion. They were forced to convert to Judaism. Herodians refer to a political faction that supported the Herodian rulers who were of Idumean descent and who were politically aligned with Rome. The Herodian rulers, we're talking about Herod and his clan that continued on after him, were of Idumean or Edomite blood. So their political power was rooted in Idumean, not Israelite heritage. And this is a fact that we really need to understand. But this is why the disciples asked if it was time for the kingdom to be restored to Israel. So this is telling us they were not in control in those days. The bottom line is that Esau's bloodline represented church and state. And the two groups worked together. And as you're going to see clearly here in Mark 3:5-8, you're going to see how closely they were working together. A man is in need of healing, but the religious leaders are upset because Messiah is about to heal the man on the Sabbath. So he asked them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath day or to do evil, to save life or to kill? Well, they refused to answer. After he healed the man, verse 6 tells us that the Pharisees went forth and straightway, that word can be read as they immediately took counsel with who? The Herodians against him. They began working on a strategy. Well, what were they talking about? How to kill him. Esau is always looking for a way to get rid of the seed of Jacob. But do you see the pattern? It goes on to talk about how he left there with his disciples and he went to the sea and a great multitude followed him. Well, where did they come from? Well, it names Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, and Idumea. So the seed of Esau was right there in the mix. People also came from beyond Jordan, but all of these folks were not coming for the same reason. Some were sincere, but others came to set traps. Now let's look at the historical ascent of the Herodian dynasty because it represents the fulfillment of Isaac's prophecy to Esau in Genesis 27:40. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. During the Herodian rule, one way to break Jacob's yoke was to eliminate the priesthood. Do you see why Messiah called those folks hypocrites and a brood of vipers? So once secure on the throne, Herod and his successors established a sophisticated Esau police state. And I talked about the Esau system in the last session. But this system systematically suppressed the house of Jacob while exalting Roman culture. Herod understood the significance of Israel's spiritual authority. He got rid of the Sanhedrin, which functioned like the Supreme Court, and he executed the Hasmonean family members, including his own wife and sons, you all. He then turned the high priesthood into a corrupt political pay-to-play office that could be bought and sold by those who were loyal to him. And just FYI, for those who would like to dig even deeper into the history of what happened when the Herodians came to power, Pastor Omar Thibault did a series on Edom and the roots of Rome a number of years ago. So check out his playlist, and he goes into some additional details on this. I'm highlighting some things so that we can continue on with our study. So from the 13th to the 12th century BCE, the Edomite tribal groups were forming. In the 11th to 6th centuries, the kingdom of Edom was flourishing. In the 6th century, it was destroyed by Babylon. Then in the 5th through the 1st century, the Edomites became known as they experienced significant displacement and migration following the collapse of their kingdom as Idumeans. Many Idumeans were pushed into southern Judea by nomadic tribes, especially the Nabateans. From the 1st century onward, Edom actually became a symbol for Rome. Let that sink in. Edom becomes a symbol for Rome. So, when we look at this in terms of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, we'll see why Japhetic empires are represented. Edom was not an imperial kingdom. It was primarily a powerful regional kingdom. It was ruled by kings and organized into clans led by chiefs. The seat of power was centered in Mount Seir, which was strategically located between Israel and Arabia. Edom controlled the trade routes and copper resources, and it gave Edom significant economic and military influence in the area. But again, when you look at these beasts in the book of Daniel, you see Japhetic imperial powers represented. But let's go on. You're going to see how Edom is blended into all of this. Edom had bigger goals, and we're going to see that here in Ezekiel 35, 10 through 12. Listen to what the Most High says to them. Because thou hast said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it, whereas the Most High was there. Therefore, as I live, says the Most High Yah, I will even do according to thine anger and according to thine envy, which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them, against the children of Israel. And I will make myself known among them when I have judged you. And thou shalt know that I am the Most High, and that I have heard all thy blasphemies, which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate. They are given to us to consume. So Edom is condemned for claiming both Israel and Judah's inheritance. Where have we heard that before? Isn't that what we talked about in the previous sessions about Japheth living in the tents of Shem? What was motivating Edom? Anger, envy, and hatred. And when you look at these beasts that's represented, particularly in Revelation, what are they doing? They're persecuting the children of Israel. Now, don't miss the part where he says he's going to make himself known among us when he's judging them. Did you catch that? So our restoration brings about their judgment, and they're going to answer for blasphemies. He said, I heard all your blasphemies, which you have spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying they are laid desolate and they are given to us to consume. In other words, to destroy you all. So for us to see how the prophecies in Daniel and Revelation are fulfilled, we have to understand how Edom and Rome became one. Several ancient sources explicitly say that Kittim and Edom became one nation. We also read that in Jasher. Or some of them will say that their identities merge into a single end-time imperial power. By the time of Herod in the 1st century CE, Edomites, as in the Idumeans, had been absorbed into the Roman Empire, and Herod's Idumean descent became a notable example of Edom's integration into Roman society. Later writers often use this as evidence of Edom's seed being absorbed into Rome. And again, if we refer back to what we read in Jasher, it told us that they became one nation. They became one, particularly in Italy. And I did a session I can't remember when I was making the connection to the popes. We're going to make those connections as we go on, you all. So we see that there are Arab sources confirming that Edom, Kittim, and Rome merged. Historians trace the connections between Rome and Edom, and some even say that Romans are Edomites. That they are Edomites, basically that they are one. Let's look at some of those sources. We have the Arabic historians using Rum. I want to say that's how you pronounce this, as an R-U-M. So again, when you're doing your own research and you're trying to find information, you have to look for how the name is spelled differently. Other nations may use it differently or spell it differently. So they are saying that Rome refers to the Eastern Roman Empire. They also identify Edom with the region south of the Dead Sea, the Nabateans, Arabs, the Idumeans, and in some cases, the Byzantine Romans. So we're looking at other sources that are also making this connection between the Romans and Edom. Here's a passage from the Quran equating Rome with Edom. So in Surah Arum 33, it calls the Romans the people of Edom. Interesting. They're calling them the people of Edom. Here, son of Kathir in the 14th century identified Edom as descendants of Esau and linked Esau's descendants to the Romans. He's quoted as saying, "The Romans are from the children of Esau." Now let's think about Zepho and his connection there. Do you think he had children there? What happened to his descendants? Let's go on. This is another one. Al-Tabari in the 9th century also connected the Edomites to the Romans. He explicitly says the Byzantines descend from Esau, which means Edom is Rome in Arabic historiography. And just FYI, that this was a significant historical chronicle that traced the lineage of Esau to Rome, explicitly stating that the Byzantines descend from Esau. In the 10th century, Al-Mas'udi, some of these names you all, describes Edom as a people connected to the Romans. His territory is considered as part of the lands later ruled by the Byzantines. He writes that the Romans inherited the lands of Edom, effectively merging the identities. Here's the quote: "The land of Edom became part of the dominion of the Romans." In his work, Edom is portrayed as an ancient people whose lands became part of the Roman world, with the Romans absorbing and continuing Edomite heritage, thus blending their identities in the historical record. Is this not what we saw in the book of Jasher? Same thing, they became one. Here's another one. Al-Yaqubi, a prominent historian of the 9th century, he did a work, and it was a comprehensive history of the world, including Edom's territory and its integration into Roman or Byzantine rule. So in his work, he discusses the genealogical connections between Esau and the Romans, reflecting on the historical and cultural interactions between these groups. According to him, Edom eventually came under Roman control, later transitioning into the Byzantine Empire. And he frames this absorption as part of the broader expansion of Roman authority in this area, integrating Edom into the administrative and military structures of the empire. So when we look at Daniel's 4th beast, when we look at it, Daniel's 4th beast is basically the final Gentile empire. It's politically Rome. It's spiritually hostile to the children of Jacob. They're manifesting that same energy toward us or against us as Esau. Why is that? Why is that? That's the question. As we go on, we're going to see that Edom, and we're saying Edom is the end of the world, so the final oppressive world power. By the Second Temple period, Edom was often used as a code for Rome, the final Gentile empire, the last system opposing Yah's kingdom. Well, how do we equate that with Japheth then? If we see that all of those beasts are basically Japhetic, or not all, the last two primarily, Japhetic imperial systems. So how does it all tie together? Esau Edom is representing the spiritual identity of the final empire, Japheth, the political lineage of the final empire. They are describing different dimensions of the same phenomenon. In other words, Esau, He brings everything that he is, the character, all of that into the final age. Japheth is bringing the structure, the system, the imperial system, because remember, they're scattered. They're controlling the world, basically. So Edom, if you think about it this way, Edom would be the heart of the system. Rome, Greece, Japheth would be the body of the system, the arms of it, executing, carrying out what's in Edom's heart. So Edom, again, represents the spiritual aspect, the character of the final world order. Oh, go back. While Japheth's empires represent the political machinery that carries it out. Two lenses. One eye, Esau, one Japheth. The two connect. We have to see this connection if we're going to understand what is happening in the book of Revelation. Why are the beasts so enraged against the people of the Most High? The dragon goes to make war with the woman and her seed. Why is that? Well, who hates the Israelites that much? Who has a perpetual hatred that has passed on throughout the centuries? Esau. Now, out of everything that we talked about, this part right here is the most important because it points to the early relationship between Judaism and Christianity. Why is it that a religion that says it originated with the Israelites be responsible for its persecution, enslavement, and trafficking around the world? Not only that, a lot of Christians are not making the connection to the paganism at the root of the religion. So let's look at this article. It's entitled "The Religion of Idumea and Its Relationship to Early Judaism." So it's saying for several hundred years from the late Iron Age, interesting, Iron Age, to the end of the 2nd century BCE, the southern neighbor of Judea was Idumea, populated by descendants of Edomites, together with Kittites and other Arabs, and a mix of additional ethnicities. So we see that joint venture between Esau and the Arabs. Remember the wives, those that he married. So they're talking about the identity, especially the religious identity of these Idumeans. And they're using a wide range of written sources and archaeological data. And within the Bible, Edom is presented as Israel's twin and its harshest enemy. There are hints that the Edomites worshipped the God of Israel, this says, while the origins of the Edomite deity Quas remain obscure, as does the process of their migration into southern Judah. The many inscriptions from the Persian period show that Quas became the most widely worshipped deity in that area, even if other gods, including, this says Yahweh, were also recognized. The Hellenistic period brought heightened Greek and Phoenician influence, but also the stabilization of Idumea as an administrative ethnic unit. Some of the practices of this period, such as male circumcision, show an affinity to the Judaism of the time. Now, we know that Esau more than likely would have done that as well as a descendant of Abraham, right? Let's go on. So let's look at this religion of Idumea. It says, as far as presently available evidence allows us to reconstruct, The religious practices of the Iron Age Edomites were similar to those of other Western Semitic peoples. Like many Levantine groups, at least some Edomites practiced circumcision, although we do not know to what significance, if any, they attach to the practice. A few biblical and other references hint at the possibility that they worshipped Yahweh, perhaps in conjunction with other deities. Within the Bible, there is a tradition that their ancestor Esau was the twin brother of Jacob, progenitor of Israel. While we do not know if the Edomites had a similar tradition, this shows that at least in the Judahite eye, Edomites and Israelites had much in common. At some point in the late Iron Age, Quas became the national deity of the Edomites. There is a debate on the origin and nature of this deity, but his name appears as a theophoric element in an increasing number of inscriptions found on both sides of the Araba. From these and from additional evidence, we can reconstruct an Edomite migration into the Negev during the late Iron Age. Although this migration's character remains debated, some scholars see it as an invasion, while others prefer a more peaceful infiltration model. There is also a debate on the role that the Edomites played in the fall of the kingdom of Judah in 586 BCE. In any case, after the fall of Edom itself, apparently in 552, it was the Edomite diaspora in southern Judah that continued to carry on Edomite name, identity, and religion. And then something else happened. They became us. My, so many people taking on our identity. Who do you think those people are today? Just pause and think about it. Who do you think those people are today? This is the part that we need to continue to talk about, because when we read the New Testament, if we don't differentiate and understand that there are different groups there that are being talked about, and when you think about Paul's words, all Israel will be saved, well, is he trying to differentiate between Israel and the other groups who are there? All Israel is not Israel. Why were those statements there? We never really considered it. But you had a mixed multitude there. You have the majority or a good number of the Pharisees, the religious leaders, are Edomites. You have the Herodian dynasty in power, and they are in sync with Rome. Why is that? Did that connection or did that line pass on from Zepho? So there's much to consider. There's a lot we still need to dig into and understand. And what's interesting is as we continue to learn this information, things start to make sense. The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. We understand that the tares are right there next to the wheat. Wherever you see Israel, you need to look at those who are trying to destroy us. Those who are wanting to be in positions of power over us, pretending to have our best interests at heart. But at the end of the day, they're working against us. And far too often, I think we're a bit naive when it comes to these things. I don't think we understand just how wicked some of these folks are and how intense this hatred is toward us. Listen, they literally hate the seed of Jacob. Again, we want to give these folks the benefit of the doubt, the seed of Esau, and those who are working with him, who are aligned with him. But no, Scripture is making it plain that this is a perpetual hatred. You all, if it's perpetual, then how can we say Edom is no more? It passed on. It kept moving on down through history. And we see Esau presenting himself as something else. We have name changes, taking on the identity of other people. Who's doing that today? Who are we? The same. We see the same pattern. Move in. They take over the resources, take over the identity, and basically enslave the true people. We've seen it happen time and time and time again. So we need to wake up. We need to understand that these words were written for our benefit, for us to learn and understand. Now, of course, we're just now waking up as a people. And now that we have an opportunity to look back and research the history, we can see how these prophecies are lining up, you all. We can see how these pieces of the puzzle fit together. We can understand where we don't ever need to ask again, why do these people hate us so much? I mean, that should be a given at this point. Do we really need to ask why? They basically want to eradicate, get rid of the seed of Jacob. But the Most High is saying, no, that's not going to happen. Even though he allowed us to be chastised, allowed the whipping, he promised that we would not be utterly destroyed. That's what he said. So as we continue to look at this information, to pull these pieces together and look at it from a natural as well as a spiritual perspective, it gives us greater insight into the book of Revelation and the last days. We have a better understanding of why this dragon is coming after the woman and her seed. It's that same spirit of Esau, the same perpetual hatred of trying to get rid of those that the Most High has appointed to be his chosen people. So let's see what some of you are saying. I didn't want to pack in too much because I know this is a lot of information to try to digest. And just FYI, you all, for those, because some of you use the resources to study additional things, make sure you you can screenshot this information. If you want to, download the videos, you're welcome to do that. And I say that because they're just removing videos. I got a notice this morning about, they didn't even name the video. They just put what it was about. And guess what it was about? Edom. But it's almost like it's to be expected to a certain extent. When I get on this topic about these folks or the Nephilim and their seed, etc., certain things just start to come out of the woodworks, certain folks included. They get in the comment section and listen. We need to be able to recognize these folks, okay? We need to be able to recognize them. Let them talk long enough and they'll soon enough identify themselves. But yeah, another video removed today. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, which video is this exactly? So yeah, make sure you're recording these sources if you're also, studying along with me as we do that, because we know what time it is, right? Basically, they said the video was taken down because of the quote that was made regarding about with Esau or concerning Esau. And when I put these quotes out there, it's not like I'm not using reputable sources. But anyway, like I said, we know who we're talking about. So welcome to all of our first time viewers. If you're joining us for a live for the first time, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. TB Jones says, ready to learn. All right, got that pad and pencil ready. How are you, Joan? I was listening to War Scroll, and yes, Edom, Japheth are done. And there were some other nations that were spoken of in War Scroll. That was also one of the sources that I was looking at, connecting the two. So thanks for sharing that, Joan. Let's see who else we have here. Okay. Hello to our moderators. Peace and blessings to all of you. Thanks for all that you do. Shaya, you're too funny. I start getting butterflies as soon as the clock runs down. Okay, that's funny. That's funny. I have folks fussing at me, telling me it's too short. I'm like, do you want me to get any sleep? We have to cut it off at some point. Let's see. Beloved vision. Simultaneously, Yah is speeding up time and judgment is coming down faster than it used to. Definitely time is speeding up. I know. I recognize it. I definitely recognize it. How you doing, brother Roderick? Glad to have you with us. Also, the J4235, I caught alive. All right, so several folks are saying finally made it. Well, welcome to all of you. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Grace and peace to you as well. Only 60 games played. All right. Biblical truths and misconceptions. How are you doing? Let's see. Oh, praises to the Most High Yah for his faithfulness. We also have Laura Approve joining us. Ron says, made alive, proud of myself. He says he's sunbathing on the deck. All right, now getting that sun in. I'm not mad at you. I got mine in early this morning. I have to do it early because, man, by the time it gets kicking in the afternoon. Woo. Okay, let's see who else we got joining us. For those of you just coming on in, please remember to hit the like for us. Okay. Ima Raelia. Shalom, Sister Hulda and family. Been looking forward to this lesson. I'm assuming I have shared your site with a few Hebrews. The Most High knows I need this information. Well, blessings to you as well. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Much appreciated. Levitical progeny. Hello to you. Okay. I'm going to keep going. Highlight a few more. Right. Carla says Esau is irreverent. No kidding. Blasphemous as well. Look, You all, the writing is on the wall. It's on the wall. Saul Will says they created a worldwide system and stole everything, then taxed us to this day for just existing. Yeah, it's a breathing tax. You have to pay that. Shalom to you, Brother Harold. I pray that all is well with you. Sister Alma, how are you doing? Truth seeking. This is why many of us continue to be food, looking at skin color as the be all. No kidding. No kidding. Let's keep going. Highlight a few more. I think we're going to be wrapping it up a bit early tonight, you all. Yeah, as I said, I didn't want to put too much in there. Just enough to chew on. Okay, let's see what else we have. How are you, Sister Malaka? Good to have you with us. All the same to me, I'm late, but I'm joining for the first time. Well, welcome to you. Let's see. What else we have? Some more shout outs. Yeah. So, Miss Lively, I finally caught the live. Your channel has taught me a lot. All praise to the Most High, sis. Thanks for joining us. And I'm just excited about what's happening. We can see it. Can't you see it, though? I mean, I know it's like, you're groaning with everything that's happening, but can you not see the Most High's hand? Things are happening. They're unfolding. Oh, thank you for sharing, Shamika. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let's see. A few more. Let's see. Yeah, according to Yah, their MO has not changed. You have to look at the fruit. What are they doing? I mean, some of the things they do in their attempts to come against us, it's like, this isn't even making sense. Like, what is this about, really? You have to be able to see that there's a spirit. There's a demonic spirit behind this. It's just, why? Roderick says, Rome's still ruling, too, through secret societies. Exactly. Surely. We're not to assimilate or mix with the ways of the world. How are you, Sister Karen? It's great to have you with us. Choctaw family says Roman Empire never fell. It transformed into Roman Catholics. I mean, it's not like they're not wearing their name, right? They're telling you who they are. They're telling you who they are. Roman Catholics. Folks just ignore that. So let's see what else we have. Sister Malaka says the children of Edom, children of Esau, Idumeah, all the exact same people viewed through different historical and linguistic lenses. Yeah, and he said he would make them small. They would be small among the nations. So they're in there. They're in there. The psalmist saying she thinks Iran knows who these people are. Ties everything together. For sure. Alrighty. Okay. A few more and then we're going to wrap up, family. No more moans and groans about that's too short. It's an appetizer. Okay. Yeah. They continue to steal the identity of others. Satan's seed, Genesis 3:15. Yeah, for sure. All right, family, we're going to wrap up with that. Hopefully, you all remember that the book Spirit of the Orphan is still out there. You can now get it in various formats. Kindle readers, hard copies, hardcover, soft cover, and have it read to you as well. So definitely be sure to pick up a copy. Thanks to those of you who are writing reviews, much appreciated. And for those who are sharing it with others, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to wrap it up, family. As I said in the beginning, please, please, please keep our children lifted up. I pray that they get to the bottom of what happened with that young man. Just tragic. Just tragic. But I just pray that the truth will come forth. And we're going to wrap it up with that. Peace and blessings to all of you. Be sure to enjoy the rest of your week.